Good morning, everybody. This is Jillian Epperly with JillyJuice.com. Um, yeah, wow. This last week has been a complete experience that I'll never forget. And I would say, yeah, I would say it would be an experience I will never ever forget. So I went on to some kind of public site last night, uh, and they're talking about, that's right, stroke victims. Why stroke victims now with the COVID-19 are in their 30s and 40s because they are holding predispositions, and the clotting of the blood is prevalent in people with predispositions, and they're finding out that even 30 and 40-year-olds are dying from strokes or getting afflicted by strokes and maybe suffer long-term damage. And so I think I said, yeah, I totally believe it because I had a stabbing pain this last week, stabbing pains for a couple of days. So as someone that has a weak immune system could potentially die from a stroke. And I got a myriad of reactions, definitely some responses. And I said, hey, when you take an NSAID, whatever it is, okay, NSAIDs, they are antibiotic. Okay, so they do create antibodies, but they also, yes, break up clots. Okay, so they do two things. They kind of are oxymoronic. They break up clots and they probably redisperse them, and then they create antibodies. Okay, because they're antibiotic. NSAIDs are antibiotic and they're anti-inflammatory. How does that work? Well, it works because it's something that is causing an imbalance in the body, and it's a cure. NSAIDs are cures. They're not long term. They're not. So, so what would do a full job? Well, I realized this week that, and I was studying the prostaglandin hormone like in its most intense way because I've actually felt the prostaglandin hormone do what it needed to do. And it wasn't fun. It was actually quite torturous, but it needed to happen. I needed to experience the full scope, the full power of making sure my prostaglandin hormone was being released and not being suppressed. And that meant that I wasn't going to take anti-inflammatory. I wasn't going to take anything antibiotic. I think the only thing that I did at the very tail end, at the peak of the prostaglandin hormone, which is basically a hormone that gives you the pain sensation and it aids in the healing process. The only thing that I did to give me some kind of just, even if it's just a superficial relief, was to just get peppermint oil and water and put it on a washcloth and just put it on my forehead, and that was it. I didn't take anything internally. It was just more of like a distraction than anything else. But I didn't interrupt the process because I still had the pains. I still had the throbbing, stabbing, intense migraine that on a lesser of a person, it could have been a stroke and it could have been a major one. So prostaglandins, the whole point of prostaglandins is it disperses the clots and it heals the body. So there's two jobs of the prostaglandin hormone, and they're in all of your tissues, your cell tissues. I can feel when my head, like right now, like, have you ever had an itchy scab or an itchy wound? And or you had a broken arm and you had itching underneath your cast. Well, my scalp has been itching, and then I can feel the prostaglandin hormone be released as well. It's a trip. My body was going through a neurological upgrade with this coronavirus, and the prostaglandin hormone was being released because it was healing the deficiencies and the issues and the upgrades, because whenever you evolve to the next level up, you go through an upgrade process, and it's a pain process of which the allopathic holistic community has mischaracterized, and they've suppressed the evolutionary leap, of the upgrade process. And so I allowed that to come to surface, and it felt like, in the beginning, it was like a very low murmur of a pain. And then in the middle, it was just like a constant pulsating. And then right now on the tail end, yesterday was like a tiny, tiny murmur, but hardly really anything. And I felt like 100 times better than I did the day before. And then today it feels like, you just on the tail, you're at the end and there's a scab and it's itching. That's what it feels like. And so my head's kind of itching right now. And then I feel the pleasure pain of the prostaglandin hormones still at the surface, because those prostaglandin hormones are everywhere. And prostaglandin hormone inhibitors are anti-inflammatory. So if you're taking anti-inflammatory, you are inhibiting the prostaglandin hormone from doing its job. So even though, yes, when people take NSAIDs to disperse the antibodies, it doesn't heal the body. And then it also creates more antibodies in the body to coagulate somewhere else. Okay? And so I got a lot of comments, some nasty ones, but people get confused around NSAIDs because well, how could it be that, if you're going to release the prostaglandin hormone and it disperses the antibodies, it disperses the clotting, well, doesn't the NSAID do the same thing? Well, yeah, but it doesn't heal the body. NSAIDs will also create antibodies because they're antibiotic. Okay? And just trying to get that across to the general population who are depending upon cures, whether it's a holistic cure or an allopathic cure, getting that across to them is like, holy crap. But I got a good many views on my page, and some of which want to troll, and that's fine. I just block them. But NSAIDs are not the end-all be-all, and definitely should not be used on a continuous basis because it does create antibodies. But I feel like 1,000 times better today. I slept really good last night, up early. Even drinking coffee didn't trigger the prostaglandin hormone to come through or to activate, because whenever you take an accelerant, whether it's coffee or Coke or any like a Monster or anything caffeinated, it then triggers the body to go into its processes, and it's fine as long as you have what it takes to handle the processes. And so yesterday, drinking coffee and drinking Coke activated it activated the healing process, which is good. Okay. But I needed a rest. So I drank coffee this morning and maybe barely even a lick of a pulsating prostaglandin hormone release, because that's what I experienced this last week was prostaglandin hormone release. And if you're not well versed or understanding how your body works, people will suppress that release and they don't get the healing. They'll get superficial healing, but they will adapt at a lesser version of themselves. And that's why you see the aging process. People are adapting to the lesser version of themselves. That's what it is. Let me write that down. The aging process is people adapting to the lesser version of themselves. And when you're doing the J juice, you are adapting and upgrading to a more advanced version of yourself. So the JJ is adapting to a more advanced version of yourself. And so this would make sense why some people are still cavemen and some people still have Neanderthalic qualities and they don't evolve past a certain point. Like they can't understand my information, or they're just too calcified to even get the information. So anyways, but understand, like I got a real true understanding of prostaglandins. Like a real true understanding and in the field, not just like, okay, I know about it because I felt it kind of, but I actually was feeling the activity of the prostaglandin release. No different than an oxytocin release when you take drugs or you have sex or whatever. People do like to rely on the oxytocin release. And that's why you see all the love, love, love tantric sex people, because they are living off their oxytocin until they deplete those resources. And then they try to synthetically gain and create the oxytocin, of which then they start seeing anomalous activities in their body because they're forcing their body to create something that it didn't naturally do on its own with the right chemistry. Okay, so feeling the prostaglandin release was like the complete opposite of having that, multiples, in a good partner type of thing. Not, but you know what I mean? I'm not advocating at all to go and find someone that gives you multiples. And you know what those are. Multiple O's. Okay? I'm trying to make this a little bit G-rated today. All right? So I felt the complete opposite of oxytocin this last week. But the prostaglandin hormone, which has been so mischaracterized and so demonized, that this is why we have the aging and degrading and cancer, disease, and chronic illness in the population. Because everybody wants to be, not everybody, a lot of people want to be drugged, they want to be anesthetized, and they don't want to feel pain. And pain is the evolutionary process, but you have to support the pain process, which is the healing process. You have to support it in the right way with the right chemistry. And I didn't know how long this was going to last with my upgrade to my neurological pathways. Someone said it lasted for them for 6 days. Well, mine started on Monday, and then Tuesday I was in the thick of it. Tuesday and Wednesday I was in the thick of it. And then yesterday and today is at the tail end. So I'd say Sunday, Monday. So it's about I guess it would be 6 days. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 7 days. Okay? And so there is an end to the healing process if you've earned it. Okay? To take any kind of drugs or anti-inflammatories or holistic remedies would have you earn something, would have you get an outcome that you didn't earn, and then then you would get on the back end, the short end of the stick. Okay? I went through the earned healing process. I dealt with the pain, and it was torturous. And you can see, this last week, since April 20th, what I dealt with as far as the healing process without taking NSAIDs or any kind of anti-inflammatories internally, and barely even topically. I think when it was at its peak, at its worst, was that peppermint oil and water on a washcloth. And I did that even in the beginning when I was going through the J-juice healing process in the beginning. Okay, so, that is something that I don't say is bad, but only if you really have to. Okay, so anyways, so NSAIDs and anything in the holistic world that are anti-inflammatories will create antibodies, and they will cause imbalances in the microbiome. So I feel better today. I feel like, wow, I can go, run a mile or something. Well, not really. I'm not going to go right now and hang out with people. I'm going to wait and see if I have any more symptoms. Okay, because my husband's out and about. He's a trucker. He kind of just lives his life whatever, which is fine. So he brings home everything that I have to experience. It's I don't disinfect him when he comes home. He's out there. And he does what he does. And I kiss him and I hug him and I love him and that, And so I will get whatever is out there and I will adapt to it. I have no fear of anything that my husband brings home as far as the virus and any different mutations. Because at some point we will become immune to the COVID with all of its different mutations. And when I said yesterday in one of my posts that, every single time you are communicable, you have contributed your shortcomings, your DNA to that virus, and then you give it to somebody else, they're going to take on your DNA, all of your different shortcomings, okay? And you can call it a shortcoming or you can call it an upgrade, but it's all in how you characterize it. On a strong body, it's an upgrade. On a weak body, it's a shortcoming. You won't necessarily know until you know that person. You won't know that you got an upgrade unless that person, that person is sick or you felt something, but you didn't necessarily, have a very aggressive symptom process. But if when you got an upgrade, when somebody that is sick was around you and you kind of felt something, whether it's you blew your nose more that morning or you took more of a poop or you felt something different. Okay, now if you're doing a bunch of the J-juice a lot, you may not feel so much because you're always taking in and releasing. And some of you are doing so much J-juice that maybe you had, those antibodies and that exposure, and you released it so quickly that you didn't have time to feel the upgrade. Maybe it happened so quickly. I don't know. See, that's what's so interesting about this J juice. Not everyone's going to feel the same things that other people feel. And it doesn't mean that you're not getting the upgrade, but there are specific measurable results. Okay. Things that need to be taken care of and fixed and reversed. And so only you know what those are. So, it's always good to challenge yourself to take in more nutrition when all possible. And some of you are doing that, like John. Yes, you're doing that. And it's good to, and you don't have to keep doing it on a continuous basis. I mean, John's trying to do a gallon, today, which is great. And maybe tomorrow he doesn't do that gallon. But I remember when I did about 3/4 of a gallon in like one sitting, that was enough to take me to the next level of the healing process. And then maybe I didn't drink for the next couple of days, or maybe I drank only like a shot or two the next couple of days. And so it's whatever is comfortable as far as your nutritional intake and what you can handle, with the healing process. And there is nothing wrong and nothing right. Everything is correct. Everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. And, and so this whole COVID is such an amazing, like just seeing the testimony yesterday from Mary. Oh my God, she looks like a new person. I mean, she's out there now by her husband's side, jackhammering construction stuff. And she was barely freaking walking a couple weeks ago. I mean, that's how amazing this J juice is. Okay. And she has heart issues. She had the COVID stuff. I mean, this stuff is nothing short of a miracle, but you have to do the work. You have to feel the upgrades. You have to do the work. So I'm just really, really thankful that I'm not feeling that crazy pain like I did last week. Because that was really horrible. And I didn't even feel like doing waterfalls. I mean, I think I did one waterfall, one or two or something. I wasn't doing like waterfalls every day. At some days I was just sitting there with the pain, like, okay, I'm just going to deal with it. Screw it. And that was that one video where it's all black. Okay. And it's like in the dark. And that was when I wasn't doing anything like even putting peppermint oil water on a washcloth. I was just sitting with it, feeling like the pulsating prostaglandin hormone, just releasing. I mean, that is the body's medicine, is that prostaglandin hormone, just the valve opening. And it's like, you got to deal with it. Like you got to let it do its thing. Because there's a reason why the prostaglandin hormone is releasing, because yes, it's painful, but it's healing the body, of which an NSAID can never, ever do. Okay, the prostaglandin hormone, it breaks up the clots, but it also heals simultaneously. So there's a two-pronged approach in your body, or two-pronged. It's doing two different things that an NSAID would only do one of the two things. Those are the cures on the market where they only do half of what your body can actually do if it's given if it's supported by the right science and chemistry. So so the whole thing with the NSAIDs is more of proof and substantiation why we don't turn to pharmaceuticals, if at all possible. Why even the holistic industry is not something to turn to, because they deal with the same thing. They deal with anti-inflammatories that suppress the prostaglandin hormone. They deal with antibiotics. They deal with anti-parasites. They deal with antimicrobials. It's all part of your microbiome. They deal with antivirals, antifungals. All of that is part of your microbiome. And when you start inhibiting cell replication at the micro level, that's when you shorten your telomeres. That's when you shorten your lifespan. And that's why people in the holistic world are aging rapidly, because the amount of hormone manipulation and the amount of antimicrobials they take on a daily basis, or the amount of wrong chemistry they drink. When they're slurping down a slurry of freaking minerals, and then they go have the gall to politicize what Trump was saying as far as injecting disinfectants. You know how many freaking holistic people drink disinfectants? And they call it natural remedy. But all of those aggressive minerals are just as bad in a disinfectant as it is in some kind of natural remedy that people are drinking. Whether it's elderberry syrup, that's a natural disinfectant. That's a disinfectant, is elderberry syrup. As well as kombucha and apple cider vinegar and the lemon water. That's a disinfectant too. But people are drinking disinfectants all the time. And they want to go say, oh yeah, you're injecting disinfectants. Well, you're fucking drinking disinfectants. Those of you that want to turn this into an anti-vax platform. You know, when you're telling your friends, here, drink some of this ginger and turmeric and honey and lemon water and apple cider vinegar with what else? Oh, jalapenos. And then they have, this is the ultimate antiviral, and they're all about up in arms about, you know, injecting disinfectants, and they're drinking the same shit that they're, it's almost laughable. It's laughable. It's funny as hell. And so anyone that takes a stance, an anti-vax stance, and wants to politicize what Trump said and turn it into an anti-vax platform, I'm deleting it off my Facebook. Because they don't understand elements and minerals and the microbiome and balance. Because no matter what side you take, you're going to come off as a hypocrite. You're going to come off as just completely uninformed. And those that do take a side against vaccines, or those that do take a side against Monsanto and all the different, you know, processed foods, don't realize that all of their natural remedies and all of their organic food is just as bad, if not worse, because they do a lot more of it, and then they justify it. So, you know, I don't know. It's the irony of it all. I'm telling you, irony does not escape me. Irony makes the best stories. And now I'm just watching how everything unfolds. You know, people in my world on the J Juice understand the prostaglandins, because I talk about it a lot. I mean, that's the whole basis of J Juice, is allowing the prostaglandin hormones to be released without any interference. And if you have to have an interference because it's so bad and you don't have the strength, like I couldn't see somebody in hospice or very, very old or very weak really deal with that kind of pain unless they had a very good support system, like a very good one. And I tell you what, even deal with it on my own. Like my husband, when he was around every so often because he still had to go to work, but it was nice to have him around when he was around when I was dealing with it. And he was worried about me. But I mean, when you are dealing with healing and you're coming from a hospice or you're coming from a cancer, you know, disease, some kind of real aggressive chronic illness, and you're trying to deal with the upgrades in the head, that's probably the worst pain ever. Is like maybe your back and your head. I mean, that's what right now Christina Morris is dealing with, is she's dealing with upgrades in her back, her head. And, you know, it can be very torturous. And so, yeah, I won't get on anybody for trying to run interference on that. However, you know, you do too many anti-inflammatories, antibiotics, you'll stop the healing process. And then what have you gained? Absolutely nothing. So you have to kind of measure out what you can handle. And only when you really have to turn to an anti-inflammatory, if it really warrants that. But some people are so used to, at any sign of any kind of pain or any kind of discomfort, they're already, you know, smoking the pot. And then you see the outcome of that. You see the people's bodies are so anomalous from smoking so much pot because they don't feel anything and their body becomes completely dysmorphic. They have anomalous messages being sent to the different biochemistries, and then you start seeing people either gain weight or become very underweight, and you start seeing cognitive disabilities and neurological issues. Okay? And that comes from drugging yourself on a continuous basis, not allowing your body to feel, heal, and upgrade. And I've always been a proponent, really. Even if I played around with alcohol and experimented in my younger days, ultimately I knew I had to deal with the pain of breakups and relationships and job losses and just dealing with, you know, whatever didn't go my way. I never really turned to drugs or alcohol as a consistent way to deal with problems. Never. But I had fun experimenting and playing those games, not because I had to, because I had fun, but it never lasted long. But I think what I turned to was smoking cigarettes when I was stressed out. But I stopped smoking cigarettes in 2016. I think the last cigarette I smoked was around 2017, around January 2017. And then I think I quit like 100% smoking cigarettes right there in the beginning of 2017. And then my other problems started happening. And I had the trolls and the challenges and the moderators going haywire and ape shit. I mean, that's probably when I should have started smoking again, just to help me get through that. But I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I had the J Juice. So, but yeah, the sore throat that I had like early last week, totally gone. Didn't even turn into anything horrific. It was like the sore throat was like for a minute and then it disappeared. Okay. And everything was on the right side. So you do have the right side of your throat, the right side of your brain, the right side of your head, and nothing was on the left side. I felt nothing on the left side that needed to be upgraded or had any kind of healing process. Okay. So, yeah, I'm telling you, the pain changes you. If you do the J juice and you sit with the pain and you do the J juice, sit with the pain, okay, because you're supporting your body correctly, you are going to appreciate the upgrade process. You're going to appreciate everything that you will never allow your body to ever go to shit ever again. That is the power of the prostaglandins. It's like corporal punishment in a lot of ways. People say, oh, you shouldn't spank your kids. Well, I mean, I don't think you should wail on your kids and abuse them, but sometimes a little slight smack here and there ain't a bad thing, that it's not going to do any damage and it's not used very often. But, some kids are a bit more crazy, but I mean, I'm not trying to get into how to raise your kids. But I'll tell you what, pain is one of the biggest lessons. I mean, you get a little smack here on the butt or you end up in the hospital, right? Because you got hit by a car because you didn't look both ways. I had that happen where I would just run out into the street when I was a kid, and then I got smacked in the ass for not listening to my parents and looking both ways. When you touch something hot, pain is the ultimate lesson. It's the teacher. Okay? So, but here's the thing. You have to support your body correctly to be able to handle that pain, to know you'll never, ever revisit that again. One of the biggest things about revisiting history and the pain of the Holocaust and pain of slavery and the pain of all these different historical events is that we haven't really learned too much of it, because we still have slavery. We still have people that are hurting each other. And so there's one thing to revisit events, to say what it's never going to happen again. It's another thing to revisit those events and it still keeps happening. And so that's because there are bodies that are not truly improving and regenerating at the micro level, to where you never have to even exhibit those characteristics of it might needing to be reminded that we never have it happen again. Okay, the reason why we keep revisiting history and we keep revisiting those horrible times, like the Holocaust and slavery, is because we keep creating generations who don't even know history, remember it, because their parents' generation has died off. And so that's why they keep revisiting the same shit over again, because people don't have that long memory, because they keep dying off every 100 years. What would happen if you had a generation that stayed alive on a continuous basis for over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and we still remember the Holocaust, we still remember slavery, we still remember, the wars from like Iraq and Iran and all that stuff, and we never have to exhibit those characteristics of having to be reminded of that. Remember it, but we never ever go down that road where it could happen again. And that would come from a life indefinite. When we create a generation where people live indefinitely, where they have that long memory. But right now, at this point, we have 7 billion people to get through. And not all the 7 billion people are going to survive this coronavirus. But that's the whole reason why we keep revisiting the pain. And that's why the whole thing with the J juice is we never have to revisit that pain again. We remember it, but we never, ever put ourselves in a position to have to revisit it in some way, shape, or form, or create an infrastructure to deal with it. Okay? And so this is some pretty out there concepts, only because I have the J juice. It changes your biochemistry and it changes your perspective. But the only way you're going to understand where I'm coming from on some level is if you already have a predisposition to know where I'm coming from, or, you're doing the J juice and maybe you didn't, but you went into J juice for something different. And then you're kind of seeing now where I'm coming from. And now you kind of get it. Okay, when you have every generation dying off, there's not going to be that long memory. It's going to be somebody else's memory that's going to keep revisiting that pain and keep damaging every generation with the same fears, the same stuff. I mean, look, human trafficking, slavery once again. The gassing of people. Go look in China. That's a revisitation of the past. Okay, so we keep repeating history because we keep dying off every generation. So the memory is short. So this memory of what I went through will never ever be forgotten by myself. And it may not be forgotten by all of you that watched me go through it. If I were to die for whatever reason, there'd be no memory of it, and someone else would have to relive that same bullshit, and then they would probably take an NSAID or find a way to stop it, but they wouldn't go through it because they didn't know they needed to go through it. So that's when you have a repeat of history, because the short memory and short lifespans. So the whole thing with the JAGES we're proposing is that you create a potential for indefinite life. So you have a long memory, a long lifespan, and you don't revisit the same shit in history, the slavery, the Holocaust, all of that stuff. But, we'll keep looping in history and keep redoing history over and over again until people learn that they don't have to die and create that short memory, short lifespan. So, the pain that I went through this last week, I will never forget. And I will never put myself in a position to do that again. And I'm hoping that whatever new virus in the future gets released, it won't affect my neurological, but it may. Every upgrade, who knows where this virus came from? If it is an actual artificial intelligence, like it was bioengineered, okay, fine. If my government deems that we need to evolve to the next level, fine. I have the capacity to evolve. Right now, we're seeing who has the capacity to evolve to the next level of human consciousness, the next level of evolution. And no matter how this virus was released, whether it was naturally or whether it was bioengineered in a lab, you now have to figure out, can you adapt to this environment? And you have the means to. You have the means to adapt. But those that don't have the means to adapt because of their belief systems and because of just, they're too far gone, it was not meant for you this time around. Maybe the next time around you come back, who knows, if you believe in reincarnation, and you'll be born into a world where everyone's pretty much evolved, and they're going to guide your reproduction so carefully that you won't have a chance to have to make the same mistakes again. So this is going to be very interesting in the future. I don't know. I'm still flabbergasted by what we're dealing with at this point. I'm just still tripping out. But I'm enjoying the process, even though it can be quite drama filled sometimes. Not that I'm trying to create drama, but I mean, when you go through a pain process, it's nothing like you'll ever experience. But you need to experience it in some level. You've got to. Because that's a memory of why you'll never let your body go to crap again. Why that you will only deal with that pain one time. And if you have to deal with another upgrade, it will be a long time and you'll be prepared for it. So right now, this COVID-19 is going to mutate in 200, 300 different strains because we have 7 billion people it has to run through. So there is going to be no other virus out there. And if there is, you know what? You might as well be able to handle it. If you can't handle this virus, you'll never be able to handle any other virus that gets released in the future. But at least now you'll know you can handle every single virus that's being released, whether it's naturally or synthetically. And you'll know what to do to be able to adapt and upgrade. And that is the true humanity, is the ability to adapt and regenerate and upgrade and still thrive despite the environment. That's the whole point of J Juice, is can humans live indefinitely despite their environment? So on that note, happy Saturday. I'm going to do what I do, which is kind of chill out right now and just sit with where I'm at and watch the world go by obliviously. All right. You guys have a good day. Bye.